An old man walked into a big city bank to deposit the money he had saved for Hajj. Dressed in torn clothes with a patched old bag on his shoulder, everyone assumed he was a beggar. The staff frowned at him. Some laughed, others tried to push him away. But within moments, everything changed. The old man quietly opened his worn-out bag, and to everyone's shock, bundles upon bundles of cash spilled out, millions of dollars. The grand banking hall froze in silence, and every staff member stared in disbelief. The man they mocked as a beggar was, in fact, a millionaire, not just in wealth, but in dignity and patience. And right there, he gave the staff a life-changing lesson, one so powerful that they were left with no choice but to bow their heads and apologize. Today's story is not just dramatic, but deeply inspiring, filled with a lesson that every one of us should carry in our hearts. So stay tuned and watch carefully till the end. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments which country you're watching from. Now let's begin this incredible story. The dusty lanes of Rampur village had always been witness to sweat and toil, but today they carried the slow, steady footsteps of Abdul Rahman, a 70-year-old farmer. His back was bent with years of plowing the land, yet his eyes carried a fire that refused to fade. For 3 decades he had saved every rupee, sometimes selling grain at a loss, sometimes skipping meals, just so he could fulfill a dream to perform Hajj. That morning, after Fajr prayers, he wrapped a faded shawl around his shoulders, lifted his patched canvas bag, and stepped onto the main road toward the city. Inside the bag were 3 sets of worn clothes, an old Quran passed down from his father, and bundles of currency notes wrapped in plastic, savings of a lifetime. As he walked from the muddy lanes into the polished streets of the city, curious eyes followed him. But those eyes carried no respect, no warmth, only suspicion and arrogance. His son Imtiaz, a young schoolteacher, had offered to arrange a luxury Hajj Plus package through his connections. "Abba, you don't have to struggle. I'll handle everything," he had said. But Abdul Rahman only smiled. "My son, this journey is between me and Allah. It must be on my own effort, not on favors or shortcuts." Imtiaz had nodded reluctantly, though pride flickered in his heart for his father's resolve. By noon, Abdul Rahman reached the city's Grand Hajj office, a glass-fronted building in a wealthy district. The tall gates gleamed, banners fluttered, and inside, cold air from the air conditioning spilled through the glass doors. For a moment he stood outside, whispering a silent prayer. "Ya Allah, grant me patience if I face humiliation, and gratitude if I am shown respect." With that, he stepped in. The reception area smelled of perfume and polish. Young men in tailored suits tapped on their phones. Women in elegant attire waited with branded handbags, and staff members in white uniforms smiled selectively at those who looked wealthy. Abdul Rahman, in his simple kurta pajama and cracked leather sandals, was a jarring contrast. 2 receptionists glanced at each other and stifled a laugh as he approached. A woman sitting nearby pulled her child closer, murmuring, "Stay away from that old man. He looks like a beggar." Abdul Rahman walked calmly to the counter and placed his ID card on the table. "Beta, I have come for Hajj registration," he said softly. The young receptionist barely touched the card. Her lips curled as she replied, "Baba, this is not a charity office. Our packages start from lakhs. Maybe you should try some government welfare scheme instead." Her colleague giggled behind her hand. Before Abdul Rahman could respond, a security guard strode over, his voice firm. "Sir, please do not cause disturbance here. This office is meant for respectable clients." The old farmer's chest tightened, but his face remained calm. His gaze wandered to the wall behind the reception desk, where a framed verse was displayed. "Allah knows what is in the hearts." A faint smile touched his lips. He slowly unzipped his patched bag, and the sound silenced the laughter around him. At first, people expected to see torn clothes or scraps of paper. One man joked loudly, "Careful, maybe he carries rats in there." Laughter rippled through the hall. But as Abdul Rahman opened the bag further, the atmosphere shifted. Carefully, he drew out neatly wrapped bundles of crisp 2,000 notes, clean, untouched, preserved like treasure. Gasps filled the room. The receptionist froze, knocking over her water glass. The officer who had mocked him lowered his eyes in shame. Abdul Rahman placed the bundles gently on the counter. 30 years of hard work, he said evenly. Not charity, not borrowed. I am a farmer, not a beggar. And this money is only for one purpose, to bow my head before Allah." The room, once echoing with laughter, was now drowned in silence. Faces that had mocked him moments ago burned with shame. But the test was not over, because someone else was about to walk in, changing the moment entirely. For a long moment, the Hajj office stood in pin-drop silence. The cold air from the AC seemed heavier now, pressing against the walls. Abdul Rahman, his wrinkled hands still resting on the bundles of money, looked around the room. His eyes were calm, but their stillness carried the weight of a storm. The people who had mocked him moments earlier now shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unable to meet his gaze. Just then, the sound of polished shoes echoed across the marble floor. A young officer, barely in his 30s, entered. He was dressed immaculately, navy blue blazer, silk tie, and shiny cufflinks. A steaming cup of cappuccino in one hand and a tablet in the other, he looked every bit the man of the modern city. Adjusting his hair slicked back with gel, he approached Abdul Rahman with a practiced smile. "Baba Ji," he began in a syrupy tone, "your intentions are pure, no doubt. But dreams require more than intention. They require resources. Our packages are designed for people who can manage comfortably. For someone like you, it may not be practical." The words were dipped in courtesy, but the sting was the same. Behind him, a wealthy couple chuckled. The husband, adjusting his golden-rimmed glasses, whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Now even paupers dare to dream of Kaaba." His wife wrinkled her nose, adding, "Truly, what is the world coming to? These people don't know their place anymore." Abdul Rahman heard it all. His face did not change, but inside his heart tightened like a fist. For 30 years he had worked under the blazing sun, bent over fields, waiting for this moment. And now, standing at the threshold of his dream, he was treated not as a pilgrim but as an intruder. He lowered his gaze, not out of shame but out of patience, and slowly closed the bag. But before he could lift it back onto his shoulder, a voice rang from the far end of the hall. "Stop right there. What's happening here?" Everyone turned. A middle-aged woman in a crisp white sari, her forehead marked with a tilak of authority rather than faith, entered. She was the branch manager, Priya Sinha, known for her efficiency and her arrogance. Walking briskly, she scanned the scene. The old man with his patched bag, the bundles of notes, the embarrassed staff. "Who allowed this man to bring this spectacle into my office?" she demanded, pointing at Abdul Rahman. The receptionist stammered, "Ma'am, he says he wants to register for Hajj, but we didn't think he could afford that." Before the girl could finish, Abdul Rahman spoke, his voice steady. "Madam, I did not come here to cause disturbance. I came with my life's savings, with the hope that I could finally fulfill my vow. If my presence offends you, then perhaps the problem lies not with me but with your eyes." The hall fell silent again. Some of the wealthy clients who had been smirking began to fidget. A young boy no older than 10 tugged at his mother's sleeve and whispered innocently, "Ma, why are they laughing at that old man? He looks so kind." The mother hushed him, embarrassed, but Abdul Rahman noticed. His eyes softened, and for a moment the sting of humiliation eased. Children, he thought, see truth before the world teaches them arrogance. Priya Sinha, however, was unmoved. "Listen, Babaji, our packages are exclusive. This is not a village fair where anyone can walk in. If you truly have money, you should know the proper process. Otherwise, you're wasting everyone's time." Her words landed like stones. A murmur spread among the clients. Some nodded in agreement. Others remained silent, caught between guilt and fear of being judged. Abdul Rahman straightened his back. Though his body was frail, his dignity stood tall. "For 30 years, he said, his voice now carrying across the hall, "I worked the soil with these hands. I harvested grains that fed families who may never know my name. Each coin I saved was earned with sweat and sacrifice. Not a single paisa came from theft, corruption, or bribes. And today I stand here not for charity, not for favors, but for the right to fulfill the command of Allah." His words echoed, sharp and clear. The atmosphere shifted once more. Those who had mocked him earlier now felt a prick of guilt. But the staff, bound by arrogance and procedure, remained stiff. The young officer with the cappuccino tried to salvage the moment. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Babaji, if you had told us earlier that you had this much money, we could have offered our VIP services. But rules are rules, you should understand." Abdul Rahman turned his gaze toward him, eyes burning with quiet intensity. "And if I had not carried money, would I still not deserve respect? Would you still have spoken to me with courtesy?" The question cracked through the hall like thunder. The officer's face flushed crimson, his composure slipping. No answer came. The silence that followed was louder than any words. Then something unexpected happened. An elderly man seated in a corner rose to his feet. He was dressed in a neatly pressed kurta, his head wrapped in a turban that spoke of dignity. With a trembling voice he said, "Beta, don't you see? This man is richer than all of us. He has saved for 3 decades, without complaint, without shortcuts. Can you measure that kind of wealth?" A hush spread. People began exchanging glances. Some lowered their eyes in shame. A woman who had earlier pulled her child away now stood frozen, regret etched across her face. Abdul Rahman, however, did not bask in their changing attitudes. He simply lifted his bag again, as if preparing to leave. "Respect delayed is respect denied," he murmured softly, more to himself than to anyone else. But just as he turned toward the door, another twist awaited him. The heavy wooden door of the manager's office opened, and a man in his 40s walked out. His face was stern, his eyes sharp. He wore the insignia of a senior government official. The crowd stirred. The atmosphere thickened. For a brief second, Abdul Rahman's eyes widened. He recognized the man instantly. It was Raghav Mehta, district collector, a figure both feared and respected across the region. What no one else in that room knew was that Abdul Rahman had once helped Raghav's family during a drought, decades ago, when his fields had provided them food without charge. Now, fate had brought them together again in this hall of glass and arrogance, and the real storm was about to begin. The glass-paneled hall grew tense as District Collector Raghav Mehta stepped forward. His polished shoes clicked against the marble floor, echoing like judgment itself. Every staff member straightened, their mocking smiles gone. The wealthy clients who had moments ago sneered at Abdul Rahman now shifted uneasily, whispering among themselves. Raghav's eyes scanned the room until they landed on Abdul Rahman. His gaze softened in an instant, and memories flooded back, memories of a scorching summer 25 years ago, when his family had been on the brink of starvation during a drought. It was Abdul Rahman, then a strong middle-aged farmer, who had carried sacks of grain to their doorstep without expecting a single rupee in return. Raghav's voice carried authority, yet also emotion. "Chacha, is it really you?" A murmur rippled through the hall. "Chacha?" The district collector was calling this ragged old farmer uncle. The staff exchanged alarmed glances, realizing how deeply they had erred. Abdul Rahman lifted his tired eyes and nodded slowly. "Yes, Beta, it's me. But today I did not come to remind anyone of favors. I came only to fulfill my vow, to register for Hajj with the money I saved through a lifetime of sweat and patience." Raghav felt a lump in his throat. He stepped closer, ignoring the stares of the staff. "Chacha, you fed my family when we had nothing. You carried us through hunger with your generosity. And today these people dared to treat you with disrespect." His voice thundered now, filling the hall. "Shame on all of you." The staff froze. The receptionist who had laughed earlier began trembling. The young officer with the cappuccino set his cup down shakily, color draining from his face. Even Priya Sinha, the proud branch manager, lowered her eyes in silence, beads of sweat forming at her temple. But Abdul Rahman raised his hand gently, silencing Raghav's anger. "Beta, don't scold them too much. Their mistake is not knowing who I am. Their mistake is not recognizing what any human is. They judge me by my clothes, by my bag, by my sandals. They forgot that before wealth, before status, Allah looks at the heart." His words struck harder than any rebuke. The hall fell utterly quiet. For the first time, every person present was forced to confront the ugliness of their arrogance. At that moment, a group of young men entered the office, volunteers from a small mosque nearby, carrying leaflets about an upcoming Hajj awareness camp. They stopped short, sensing the heavy air in the room. One of them, barely 20, looked at Abdul Rahman and said innocently, "Babaji, are you here for Hajj registration?" "You don't have to worry. In our camp, we help anyone who has the intention. Money is secondary. Niyat is everything." The timing was divine. His words sliced through the suffocating silence like fresh air. Abdul Rahman smiled faintly, his eyes moist. "You see?" he said, turning to the staff. "The youth understand what you, with all your education and luxury, have forgotten. Hajj is not a luxury tour. It is a call of the soul. The wealthy clients who had sneered earlier now squirmed in shame. One woman covered her face with her dupatta, as if to hide from her own conscience. Another man muttered, "Astaghfirullah," under his breath. The atmosphere had shifted completely. The hunter had become the hunted, arrogance replaced by guilt. Raghav stepped closer to Abdul Rahman, his voice steady. "Chacha, allow me to personally handle your registration. You deserve nothing less than the highest respect." But Abdul Rahman shook his head. "No, beta. If I accept special treatment now, then all my 30 years of sacrifice will lose meaning. I came not as the district collector's benefactor, nor as anyone's relative, but as a servant of Allah. If they could not respect me as a man, then what is the worth of their respect once they know my past?" Tears welled in Raghav's eyes. He bowed his head, not in defeat but in reverence. "Then allow me at least to walk beside you when you leave this place. It is the least I can do for the man who once carried me through hunger." Abdul Rahman smiled softly. "That beta I will accept." He lifted his patched bag again, its weight now lighter than his heart. As he turned toward the door, the entire hall stood frozen, watching him walk away. The receptionist who had mocked him earlier burst into quiet sobs. The young officer with the cappuccino whispered, "We mocked an angel and thought him a beggar." Priya Sinha, the proud manager, finally found her voice. "Sir, please forgive us. We will process your registration free of charge." "We beg you to stay." Abdul Rahman paused at the door. Without turning back, he said, "If forgiveness is in my heart, it is not because you deserve it, but because my Allah commands it. But remember this, the real price of Hajj is not in rupees, it is in humility." And with that, he walked out, leaving behind a hall of glass that now felt like a prison of shame. Outside, the city's streets bustled with noise and traffic, but Abdul Rahman felt peace in his chest. He knew Allah had chosen him not only to walk the path of Hajj, but also to hold a mirror before arrogant hearts. Word spread quickly. Within days, the story of the old farmer who humbled the mighty went viral. Social media buzzed with headlines. "True wealth lies in intention, not luxury. Farmer's lesson at Hajj office goes viral." News channels debated ethics, asking, "Have we forgotten the meaning of pilgrimage?" In Rampur, Abdul Rahman's village, people spoke his name with pride. The mosque imam said during Friday prayers, "Look at Chacha Abdul Rahman. He has taught us that dignity does not wear fine clothes. It wears patience." Young boys and girls crowded around him, asking for stories of his journey, while elders touched his hands with reverence. When the day of his departure finally came, the entire village gathered. Abdul Rahman wore a simple white ihram, freshly washed by the women of the mohalla. Children carried his patched bag as though it were treasure. Men lined up to shake his hand, women offered prayers, and tears glistened in every eye. At the bus stand, someone shouted, "Chacha, one photo before you leave." Abdul Rahman chuckled. "Photos fade, but prayers stay with you forever." He boarded the bus slowly, his steps firm despite his age. As the vehicle pulled away, the villagers raised their hands in dua, voices trembling, "Ya Allah, accept his Hajj." Far away, in the marble hall of the city's Hajj office, the staff still sat in shame. Some had resigned, others had been suspended, and the manager faced inquiries. But the deepest punishment was not official. It was the mirror of their own conscience. Each night, when they closed their eyes, they saw the calm face of Abdul Rahman, his patched bag, and his words, "Respect delayed is respect denied." In Makkah, when Abdul Rahman finally raised his hands in prayer on the plains of Arafat, his dua was simple. "Ya Allah, forgive those who wronged me, and forgive me if ever I wronged anyone. Make this world remember, not me, but the lesson you wrote through me." And in that moment, beneath the blazing sun and endless sky, it seemed as if the heavens themselves bore witness. His life's dream had come true, but more than that, his journey had become a light for thousands of others, a reminder that dignity is not stitched into clothes, but into the heart. Abdul Rahman returned to Rampur months later, his face radiant, his steps slow but steady. He brought no souvenirs, no grand gifts, only stories of patience, humility, and faith. And in every home, in every heart, his tale lived on for generations. People would remember the old farmer with the patched bag, who walked from mud lanes to marble halls, carrying not just his savings, but also the priceless treasure of self-respect. And they would say, he was not rich by wealth, but by dignity. And that is the true passport to Allah's house,